Drugs! Okay, I'll finally talk about it. All right, all right, all right. What is my stance on drugs? Well, I was talking with a friend of mine about this recently, actually, and I said something about drug use and mystical experience, and she said, well, I don't think drugs are necessary to being spiritual. And I said, well, of course not. you know. But some people do. It is some. Take the Rastafarians for instance, who for them marijuana is very much their way of connecting, and they feel that it connects them to the divine. Obviously, some drugs are harmful. I don't think there's anyone that would argue that heroin and cocaine and things that mess with your system in such a way, things that can kill you, methamphetamines, are very harmful. I would certainly never be a proponent of any of that sort of thing. Some things like marijuana, obviously, we are finding don't seem to have we don't know a whole lot about marijuana because in many ways it hasn't been tested enough. People do a lot more testing on nicotine, caffeine, alcohol, and have not tested nearly as much on marijuana. So we may, who knows, we may find out that it's more harmful than we think it is. But for the moment, it doesn't seem to be terribly harmful. I'm not necessarily a proponent of marijuana either, but that does seem to be a way for some people to attain mystical states, mystical experiences. Dimethyltryptamine is another big one. It's one that virtually no one will suggest to you because it's not a fun drug. It's not something. It is a hallucinogen, much like LSD or psilocybin, but the effects are so severe and so extreme that no one, I think, would ever take dimethyltryptamine, or commonly known as DMT, for fun. It is a chemical that exists in the human brain naturally. It exists in I think all plants to some extent or the other. Supposedly, when we die, it is what gets released into our brain. Very possibly, I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with near-life or near-death experiences. I don't know. But supposedly, it gets released into our brain. And so, when someone takes dimethyltryptamine, no, I have not taken dimethyltryptamine. I'm just talking about it. But supposedly, when someone takes it, they die, or at least in a way, they die, and they get to experience what is on the other side. And this is not a matter of spirituality. I would say it was a matter of exploration. And yes, that could be incredibly meaningful for some people. Is it necessary? No. Drugs are. I don't think there's anything ultimately that we can gain through drug use that we couldn't get through meditation, or any number or through dreaming, through lucid dreaming. There's all kinds of interesting ways of touching other realms that don't involve drug use. It's a quick way. It works very well for some people. I'm not going to say that what they experience is any less real. People will say, well, it's just affecting the brain, and so it's just causing you to have hallucinations. So how is a hallucination a real thing? Well, that depends on what you consider real. Obviously, things that you're experiencing in your mind, well, we experience the real world only in our mind, right? Our brain takes in all the information through our senses, and we only experience it up here. And so whatever we experience in our mind to some extent is real. Our dreams real. Well, again, what do you consider real? So I'm not going to say that that a mystical experience that someone had while on some kind of a substance isn't true. That it isn't valid, that the information they gain isn't true. I'm not necessarily going to suggest it. But obviously that is a direction some people go. Yes, there's some that are more safe than others. Heaven knows I wouldn't suggest LSD. Too much LSD, just ask Sid Barrett and what and the people that have fried their brains that way. On the other hand, Aldous Huxley thought LSD was the greatest thing in the world. So, you know, taken the right way and in the right amounts, I don't know. Certainly it's a more dangerous drug. That's all I'm saying. Psilocybin, certain types of mushrooms are another really, really common hallucinogen. Not necessarily a bad one. They can be bad. I mean, you can have very bad trips on them. You can have very bad experiences. Some of the things with that type of experience is that it can be positive or negative. You can have really, really horrible experiences that can, you know, some people would say scar you for life. I don't know. Obviously, I've never tried any of that sort of thing. But it is a quick way to have a certain type of experience. And some people do it recreationally, and some people do it for spiritual reasons. And, you know, only you know. And who's to say that for a recreational reason is necessarily wrong in any way? I'm not saying that. People have their own reasons for doing things. I'm not going to judge anyone for that. I'm not going to say that those things are right and wrong, but there are certainly more and less dangerous ones. Again, we are finding that marijuana, which for most people is not necessarily hallucinogenic. Some people do seem to have mystical experiences with marijuana. Again, certainly the Rastafarians seem to have some types of mystical experiences on marijuana. So, you know, for whatever that's worth, it's a safer one. For heaven's sakes, don't go off and start tripping in LSD. But they're all possibilities. I'm not going, I'm not going to say, you know, wrong or right on that sort of thing. But yes, you could have mystical experiences on some of those. Yes, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, they are valid. Yes, they could be useful to you. But on the other hand, you could do it through many other means. And there is always the danger. And you just need to be aware of it. There's always the danger with any kind of a substance. And keep in mind, alcohol and tobacco are substances. Caffeine is a substance. All of those are substances. And they are dangerous to greater and lesser extents. And anything you can get hooked on, not necessarily physiologically, but psychologically. You can get hooked on those things. So, you know, there's always a danger involved. Some people have also linked marijuana use to depersonalization. That depersonalized feeling that people get when they're separated from reality on marijuana. Some people will take marijuana and they'll never come back. It's rare, but it does seem to happen, and that is one of those lesser known dangers of marijuana use. And if you've ever known anyone with depersonalization, it is a pretty horrible thing. It's rare, but it's really horrible if you're chronically depersonalized. It can, for some people, it's probably a lot of fun when they're depersonalized for short amounts of time, but you would not want it all the time. So think about all those things. Certainly think about meditation. To me, that is the safest and in the long run, probably the most useful form of mystical experience. But, you know, drugs are certainly a direction. That's all I'm going to say. I'm the Urban Omnist. I'm sure I'll get all kinds of interesting comments on this one. Drugs! Oh, God, not this one. Drugs. Should we take drugs? Yeah! No. Drugs. Oh, I'm going to hate this video. Drugs. They'll kill you. All of you. One by one with a machine gun. Drugs. They're sexy. But only if they don't kill you. Yes. Thank you very much. Drugs. Alcohol. Tobacco. Coke. Anything else I can mention here? Oh, sorry, what was I talking about? And remember, guys, none of this works without you. So, subscribe to our channel, like us on Facebook and Twitter, and above all, don't forget to send me those questions.